Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to Harpin on Rugby, where, with the help of fellow fans, I get the chance to harp on what's going on with Leinster, Ireland, and the wider rugby world. Join me to look back at the Lions' first match down under as someone earning the cap before his 70th. Now, I wrote it that way so I wouldn't be tempted to resort to schoolboy humor if I said the actual number. Welcome back to Mr. Conor Cronin.
Good to be back. Didn't realize that one was the one that had crept up on us. So yeah, there we go.
Absolutely.
The square root of that number is 8 something.
We go into decimal points there, I think, if my maths serve me right. Yeah, that's it, exactly. Okay, well, listen, now you might have thought the season was over when Leinster won the URC. I'm going to keep saying that whenever chance I get, so just everyone get used to that.
Day 14 of that.
Something like that, yeah. It'd be 365, so that's a lot of days to go. No, but anyway, we thought the season was over, or at least when it came to Irish interest anyway, but there was still loads of it this weekend. I mean, at the Stade de France, Joey Carberry was on the pitch for extra time as Bordeaux couldn't stop Toulouse from winning another Top 14 title. Down in Cape Town, we had Cian Healy and Peter O'Mahony sporting the famous Barbarians jersey, although they lost 54-7. But that exact same scoreline had been recorded in Perth earlier that morning in favor of the Lions in a comfortable victory over the Western Force as 3 Leinster players found their way into the score sheet. What did you make of it, Conor?
Yeah, I think I'm like a lot of people where I'm not entirely enamored by the whole prospect of the Lions and everything it presents. But then you can't help but be a little bit interested when you've got 8 Irish players in the starting lineup and you've got an extra 3 then on the bench as well. So you kind of get sucked into it a little bit. I think from perspective of how the Lions played this weekend, it's these warm-up matches are really important because, as Kino put it in the chat, and I know you mentioned it last week in the on the pod, you get players putting their hands up for a variety of different reasons, and some players are putting their hand up to say, I am definitely a midweek player, and some players are putting their hand up to say, I'm out for the test jersey, please and thank you. Look, I think with or without released players and all the faff that there was during the week about whether players would be released or not, I don't think Western Force were going to ever put up something equivalent to the test setup, and certainly not something equivalent to what Argentina put up against the Lions last week. I think that some of their players, it was a good opportunity for them to test themselves against the Lions and then go and join Joe Schmidt in the Australia camp for the next couple of weeks and come back being able to say, here's what I experienced and here's what went well for me and here's what didn't go well for me. From a Lions perspective, players who put their hands up and said and did good things for themselves, I think there can't be any question that Dan Sheehan will be one of the first names on the sheet. I think that he is rock solid in that spot. And anyone thinking that insert other hooker's name here will get a look in if Dan is fit and healthy, they're deluding themselves. He is absolutely world class. And I'd go as far as to say, he's probably the best number 2 in the world right now. I'm open to debate on that, but I really think he's that good. And you see it when in very early doors, he's over for the first try. And if you look at how that try happens, Finn Russell looking up and seeing Dan on the wing with a heap of space, and Dan beautifully bats it down. It's that thing of, I'm drawing players here. I'm at risk of not taking the ball cleanly. So as he bats it down to James Lowe and then finds himself creating room for himself back inside, Lowe's offload for that it's filth. It really is. And It's beautiful to watch though, and um, it's yeah. I really think Dan has put his name up. I think Finn Russell's put his name up as well. I know I've just mentioned him. Um, I think he played really, really well. He was very heads up, very aware of what was going on and what opportunities there were. Will he get those opportunities against primed and ready Australia squad? Not as many of them, but I think he's the kind of player who he's just in a very good vein of form right now. The fact that he he had such a good run with Bath this season really helps. So I think he's definitely put his name in as a player to get the opportunity. I think James Lowe has done the same. I think he had a very good game. I know there was a bit of back and forth with Jay and Ed last week about Mac Hansen. I think Mac's done himself some good favors this week as well. I think a couple of players who've possibly dropped in expectation, maybe we'll say. Tyke Byrne was definitely not at his best. I think he's trying too hard almost, and in trying too hard, I think he's given away some silly, sloppy penalties in both of the games he's featured in. I think Tyke Furlong is also suffering a bit. It's a lack of time on the pitch more than anything else, in my opinion. It's a lack of having had opportunity to run around and work his way up to his best, coming back off an injury. So he definitely wasn't at his best. And unless he plays at a much higher level in the next couple of games, he has no opportunity, I don't think, to get his way into, never mind the starting 15, I think the 23. He needs to do a lot to get there. Other players I think did well. I think Elliot Daly had a decent game. I think Joe McCarthy had a brilliant game. I think Joe was absolutely outstanding and well rewarded for his man of the match gong that he got. Player of the match that he got. I think Josh van der Fleer's tackle numbers were immense. At one point, 19 tackles. Just absolutely huge, and none missed. And that's very important as well. The fact that it's not just he's putting in the tackles, it's that none of them were missed. I think the centre pairing, I'd love to see another outing of it. I think they played very well together. I'd love to see another go at that and see what that presents. There's a lot of people been critical because Gary's shooting up. They don't realize the impact that shooting has. It's like, oh, he shoots up and they miss. Yeah, but then where do they go? Straight into the arms of somebody who's waiting. So it's all about slowing things down. It's all about making it hard for them to create play.
When he does hit you, you know about it. And you'll have seen the videos of him doing it to other people. So just the sight of him
even
alone.
Just that game. Just that game. And I can't remember who it was, but like, poor man was down for about 3 minutes from a Gary hit. So those hits matter. I hope Tomas Williams is not a long-term injury, because I think he played really well at the weekend and would be worthy of the 21 jersey, assuming that Jemison Gibson Park is playing in the 9 jersey. Well, we're hoping he'll be playing in the 9 jersey this coming week, just to get a chance to see him and see where he's at. Like I say, some players who've really put their hands up, and it's great to see that so many of those. I mean, it's easy when you've got 8 Irish players on the pitch to highlight some, but I think no harm that they've done themselves well. And a quick mention for Henry Pollock, who I think had a decent game. I don't think 8 is his position. I think he's done well and taken good opportunities. The space gets created for him and he really runs into it very well. He had some good lines and good support running to eventually set up one of the Williams tries. But look, a good outing, lessons learned, bonds becoming more cohesive, and players are becoming more cohesive with each other. not a whole lot else you can say about a game like that.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a lot to talk about. I mean, I think I think starting with Dan is good because we actually spoke about this on the pod just a few weeks ago. I mean, you had the Leinster quarterfinal against the Scarlets, and then Dan came back into the start. He was on the bench for that game. He started against Glasgow, and literally immediately from the kickoff scored a try. It's that instant impact. You're happy to see him in the squad, but you don't expect it to be that immediate. So now you see him. You had the Lions disappointing last weekend. They lost to Argentina. Plenty of circumstances. We dealt with that last week. He comes into the squad. Now he's captain. And literally at the start, there he is. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other components. You said it yourself. Finn Russell. I thought Finn Russell had a great game. Was very impressed. Obviously, the winning the Premiership and all that kind of suited him well. He was in a good frame of mind coming into the squad. James Lowe, he was also in a good frame of mind. Apparently, he's being wound up by the stadium announcer before the game, who mentioned he was a Kiwi when he read out his name, and so he was kind of a bit spurred on by that. Again, instant impact. Pretty much first touch of the ball that showed them. But that kind of start. Now, of course, the Force went straight down the other end and scored themselves. So we thought, oh, maybe you never know what's going to happen here. But I think, like you said, two teams in a completely different track. One that's getting set for a big 3-game test series. And another that's just, a lot of them, they were going off to the Wallies, but a lot of them as well are finishing for the summer.